every single night, 6 million short-term rentals are sitting empty. That seems like a pretty big problem, you know? I mean, if you put a dollar amount to that, it's like $1.2 billion a night, or like $500 million a year.
Hi, I'm Wyatt.
And I'm Grace.
And you're listening to our dad and your host of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Moore, and I'm really excited about our guest today because I'm going to learn as much as you guys listening. This is a new concept for me. Today, we've got Shawn Wilkinson. He's the co-founder and CSO of HostShare. And so, Shawn, I'm really excited about our conversation today. I appreciate you joining us.
Well, hey, Shawn. Hey, thanks so much for having me, man. Love the name too.
Heck yeah. We better not forget each other's names, right? Throughout this conversation. So awesome, man. Well, listen, I'll tell you that it was interesting. I was interviewing one of our mastermind members, an investor who has a property in Panama City Beach about 6 months ago or so. And it was on one of our podcasts. And he was talking to me about how awesome, we were talking about his success, and we were talking about how his property launched and the money he's making, his occupancy. And then he brought up this extra thing that he was doing. And it was the first time that I had really ever given it any thought and heard about it. And he was telling me, he said, listen, it was really awesome because not only did I make all this money on this property, but I went to 3 different big vacations. I went to, I have my property in Panama City Beach, and I went to Hawaii this year. I went to Yellowstone National Park area this year. And then I took my family up by Washington, D.C. And he said, and I used it I traded basically my unused nights on my property, and that I wasn't using, was able to book these other properties, and kind of had this, I was sharing my unused nights with another host. And I thought, man, that's a really cool concept. And as long as I've been in the business, I've never really gotten into that, considered it, really talked to anybody who had done it until him. When you and I got the email that Liz said, hey, listen, I got this Shawn Wilkinson guy from HostShare, and this looks like that concept that you were really interested in. Should we talk about this? I said, heck yeah, let's get him on the podcast. I want to talk about this. So I'm really excited just for myself to learn more about this, Shawn. So what I'd love to start with, though, is tell us a little bit. I love getting to know somebody's background and kind of what got him interested in this world and kind of what led you to HostShare. And then ultimately we'll talk about the details of what that really looks like. If you wouldn't mind, let's just kind of rewind the clock a little bit, though. Let's talk a little bit about the background.
If we go back, my personal side, I'm from a commercial real estate background. It sounds like we kind of have a similar background with lots of flips, back in the day. And I built a rental portfolio, built a property management company that I still have today. But, at one point it was like, I'm just going to stay focused on this until I kind of create a freedom for myself that I felt, I had the flexibility to go try something new. And so we kept building that over time. And along the way, I built about 4 short-term rental. I built a little portfolio of 4 short-term rentals that were honestly, they were kind of just kind of on the back burner for me. I basically did them out of necessity. I put them where all of my other properties were, and that way I had a place to go whenever I would go and to see my portfolio. So I did that, and then then once me and my wife we got pregnant with our first kid, and we were like, man, we need to get back to where family's at, because we'd moved a couple hours away from family. And so at that point, we decided to move back to our hometown. So we built a home here in Yakima, Washington, and then I felt like I'd kind of had the freedom at that point. I wasn't really around all my properties, and I was getting bored. I don't know if you ever have that, but as a serial entrepreneur, you can't sit still for very long.
Yeah.
So my brother's here in the area, and we both have about 4 short-term rentals each. And one thing I realized is that these things sit empty a lot of the time. I mean, we were thinking about both of ours. We're like, well, these things are sitting empty quite a bit. We started thinking, we're both pilots, so we got thinking about how all these luxury items, including, airplanes and boats and all these things sit empty 90% of the year, or not short-term rentals, but luxury items sitting up and used probably 90% of the time. And so we started thinking about that. And it's like, man, how do you better utilize these assets? And then that's when we started thinking, our short-term rentals sit empty all the time. They've got vacancy in between bookings. And so when we started researching it, we realized that I think globally, the occupancy rate is only 39% per
Yeah.
year, which
Yeah.
was crazy to me. So like your vacancy rate is over 60%, which means that like every single night, 6 million short-term rentals are sitting empty. And so we realized that seems like a pretty big problem. I mean, if you put a dollar amount to that, it's like nearly like $1.2 billion a night, or like $500 million a year, and just like lost to lost revenue from vacancy. And so that was kind of what spurred the concept and got our wheels turning on like how do we solve a little bit of this issue or give more value to that vacancy. And so
that's awesome. And it's really, I mean, it's awesome when I talk to, I love hearing how entrepreneurs' minds work, right? And that's why I love the backstory is like what got the conversation started and how do we, and you're like, hey, this is a problem, because you're right. Like even some of the best destination markets, you're going to underwrite them at around 50-55% occupancy, which means you're at 45 to 50% vacancy. That's one of the big misconceptions, I think, for new investors in the short-term space is that these things operate at 80 or 90% occupancy. They don't, right? That's not the case. You're a really good property still going to probably be operating in that 50 to 60% occupancy. And so you've got a lot of nights that are unused. And so it's interesting to me. You have this idea, and it always takes, guys, and I'm glad, love that, we live in a world, there's guys like you and your brother who kind of figure out, they're smarter than me, that can kind of figure out these problems and then how to solve them. So what did you just like one day you're like, hey, this is a problem. We've got these short-term rentals. We've got some vacancies. Like, let's go like test this out and see how it works. Or like how did you actually put this together with Host Share and like be able to, because it's a new concept, right? It still is a new concept that not everybody's doing. And we have to, you have to get some traction a little bit so you have enough inventory where it actually makes sense for everybody, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That network effect really has to take place. And I will say that my brother and I, well, I'll speak for myself. I'm not the brains behind the operation. We ended up, we conceptualized it and figured out, kind of the calculation of how these things had to work together and how to get everyone, a free or a fair, exchange of value. But at that point, we started working on, Webflow and just trying to like start to develop something and realize really quick, this is way above our pay grade to get this done. So if you're out there and trying to start something, the best thing you can do is go and find somebody that is aligned with your values and you can bring in and just gets excited about the same thing, and we'll jump in with you that has that understanding. Because at that point, what we did is we found two partners that was actually, so it's my brother and I, and it was actually my brother's brother-in-law, so his wife's husband, that had created multiple web applications and really talented. And so luckily they were kind of at a lull with their company where they had the flexibility to jump onto a new project, and they saw the vision and were really excited about it. And so him and his partner, their names are Michael Fisk and Devin Lind, jumped on at that point, and they're our development team. So since then we've grown our development, from there. But yeah,
Are you guys based in Yakima?
Me and my brother based in Yakima. And then the rest of the team is Tennessee and Spokane. And then we've got.
And when did this kind of come together and we actually started working on development? How long ago was that?
That was actually, you'll be surprised how new we are. It was April of last year.
And so you start to put it together, because then I want to dive into how we do this. Is like, I'm an investor as well, and I have properties that ultimately have vacancy, right? And I think it is a phenomenal concept. So I want to dive into that, but I'm always really just personally interested as watching how companies come and form and grow and really put together, because we're basically almost running up on that year mark, right? We're the 1st of March right now, end of February, recording this 1st of March when this will launch. So we're not even a full year. And so what did that first year look like? I'm assuming you've got to get that inventory, right? And you've got to get that network of property owners that are buying into the concept, but maybe not being able to dive right in and use it all yet, because there just isn't a lot to use. But maybe I'm wrong. Is that what that looks like?
That was the hardest thing. And frankly, we're going to deal with that for probably this first year of being live, because we we're just now going live to our whole waiting list. We actually just went live to everyone literally on Monday. So it was basically how we started. Was we had this concept and we worked it. We talked to a lot of people, and then we started building it. We jumped right in, and then we started creating a wait list that people could jump on once they understood, kind of what the program was, and then we kind of had a couple lucky, mentions on various podcasts. I don't know if you're familiar with like My First Million podcast. They somehow came across it. Actually, one of our founders had mentioned it, and they went on to their podcast and started talking about it, and so we got a ton of traffic from that, and then just a few more things like that, to where we had enough inventory to where it actually felt like, okay, like there's places to go on our platform that are just in the waiting list right now. So we have to build up this waiting list and keep it, of course it's going to be a free model until it's like there's enough properties to where everyone's able to get, the value from it. And so we expect that it will be continuing to be free. So if your members are to sign up, they still get 12 months of, a free membership, which it's only like $3.95 a year to be on the platform. Well, what was actually funny was when I went to Nashville, I decided to go to that conference last minute. So I think it was like just a few days before, and I realized, so I paid like, I don't know, it was like $700-800 for this Airbnb that I stayed at. And I was thinking about it. If that place was on HostShare and I was to go and wanting to stay at that property, I could either pay $800 on Airbnb to go, or I could subscribe to HostShare and go to that property, as long as it's last minute. And it's actually still cheaper for me to subscribe to HostShare, and I'd still have 20, or I guess like 18 more nights to go and travel. If you're able to get in the path of a host booking last minute, anyways, it's a wash. So
how do you define? So before I ask that, I was going to say, on the last minute, tell me now, tell me the concept. If you were talking to me as a host, you're saying, hey, Shawn, this is a really good idea for you. You've got these great properties that we'd love to have in our inventory. Here's how it benefits, you to put your properties in that inventory. And what does that really look like for me as an owner or as an investor that owns these properties?
Yeah, I guess I should say HostShare is a new travel platform, right? It's like an OTA, almost like an Airbnb. It's set up in that way to where you can search properties, and travel. And so, but what's different is that it's exclusive to hosts and owners of short-term rentals. So you're only on here if you're a host or an owner, and you sign up with your own property. And when you upload your property, you automatically get 21 nights of free travel for getting your property on the platform. And then depending on price point or your ADR of your property, depends on how many nights you share. So if you're well above our median price point, you'll share a lot less nights. And so
gotcha.
What's cool is that even if you have maybe a $200 a night property, you're still able to travel 21 nights a year to all the whatever properties that are on the platform. It's just those nicer ones are going to be more limited in how many nights they're on the platform. So if you're lower than our median, then you might share more nights. But it's all going off of the law of averages, right? Because depending on if you don't have any vacancy, so you're running 90% occupied, right? Then you still get your 21 nights, and you don't actually have to share any nights. It's just we track the calendars of everybody's Airbnb or whatever their channel manager calendar, and so that way we can see those last minute, which we define last minute as 5 nights before. So those 5 nights, you kind of have a 5-night horizon, right? So if you're booking 4 nights in advance, you'd only be able to book 1 night. But if you're booking 1 night, like tomorrow night, you could book up to 4 nights, that 5-night kind of horizon.
So that's the definition of last minute, right? You've got anything within like 5 days out is what you'd be booking.
Correct. Yeah.
But you couldn't take 5 days out and book a week, right? Because it's that gets outside of the horizon. Is that correct, or how does that work?
Right now, we don't. So eventually, I mean, we get so much feature creep as we go, and we want to build more options. Right. But, eventually we'll have an ability to where you can book a week, but just 2 days would be paid,
Gotcha.
In that mix. And so,
and it's a real interesting concept of how you're keeping it kind of equitable, right? If I have a $200 a night property, no matter what, I'm going to get my 21 nights. But if my property that I put in the pool is $200 a night and the median is $500 a night, then I might need to share 21 or maybe more than 21 days in order to get my 21 days, right? And so, and vice versa. If I have a property that is $1,500 a night on average, I might only have to share a week because, to get my 21 days.
4 nights. Yeah.
How does it become how do you keep it sort of equitable to where what I'm putting in is kind of equitable to what I'm getting out?
Yeah, that was a big part of just the whole, conceptualizing this. How do you make it a fair transaction between, everyone that's on the platform? And that's kind of what we stumbled upon and are really happy with.
Right.
I think everyone on the platform is really happy with that setup.
There is one thing that can make or break your success with short-term rentals, and that's your ability to provide your guest with an amazing night's rest. We're taking all of the guesswork out of selecting the perfect mattress system. Personally, I have these custom mattresses in every one of my short-term rentals. We love them so much that we even got them in our own personal homes here in Utah. So visit VodySleepSystem.com and use the promo code PODCAST. It's all caps at checkout to get 55% off. It's interesting because I love that concept because you really don't know either who's when they book the property. One, I love the 5-day window because it truly is last minute. Those bookings are a lot of times most likely not going to book. And so that's and we obviously as investors we get last minute bookings, but that there's a higher likelihood of that property being vacant if it's not booked within a week, right? If you're within a week out. Right. There's very few markets that you would be leaving money on the table by running down that road.
And it kind of naturally, your high season it's gonna be all booked up in advance. So hopefully you don't have much vacancy in that time. So, but if there is, what's cool is that you still, as a traveler, you can get those little deals that are in between, even in the high season. But a lot of times it'll work out to be in your off season or, kind of in these, windows that might not be as popular. And, one thing too, that we're working on is, because I know for you, most of your owners are just owners and they don't host the property, right?
Yes.
And so that was kind of our, one of our main pushes right now is actually how we work with property management companies. Yeah. And we have a really great system being developed for that. And right now, our main thing that we tell management companies is that this by offering or supporting host share, it's a really unique proposition for you to grow, as a property management company because what other property management company will give 3 weeks of free travel to each of their owners,
right.
I mean, that's a really cool proposition. Plus the marketing ability where you have only other hosts coming to your properties. So now you've kind of got this, you're able to, you kind of have a captive audience while they're there at your property. It's a unique proposition to where, you're able to provide something very different from what is, what's typically done. I was going to say the other thing I was going to say was that now you don't have your other people booking their own property as much. So now you're able to, maybe book those nights with paying, customers as well too.
Right. And that's really an interesting selling point if you have a property manager, because a lot of property managers are like, man, I struggle sometimes when I have an owner that wants to book their properties all the time or whatever, right? And a lot of times all the time is 14 or 20 days a year, right? And so they're going to book it anyways. But you're saying that, hey, the owner's actually probably not going to book their property because they're going to go use somebody else's property in many cases. So they'll use this property less. And then you might have somebody in last minute that's just paying the cleaning fees, but you might not as well. It's that, like you said, it ends up being working on the law of averages. And I think it's a really, really interesting concept because I can tell you, like in our Vodyssey family, and we've got what we call a Vodyssey Escapes, and we have a master property list, and we have everybody's properties listed on there, and we try to support each other and stay in each other's properties. And a lot of times people are saying, hey, how about I'll stay in your property and you stay in mine and we swap it. The swap isn't always equitable, and it's not always the one person who wants to do it. The other party doesn't always want to go to that other place, right? And so it really alleviates that because we've seen, we love the idea of swapping properties. We've talked about it for a long time, but we've never figured out, it's always like, hey, Shawn, can I come stay in your property and you stay in mine? And one of the parties doesn't really work, right? They don't, maybe they don't want to go to, St. George, Utah, and you've got a property down in Destin, Florida, and I want to go to Destin, but you don't want to go to St. George. That seems to happen a lot. And this alleviates that because it's like, hey, listen, there's a pool of properties now. Like you say, it's an OTA of other hosts, have their properties on there. It should be a really good guest in your property because they're going to treat it well because they actually are owners and they understand that, hey, listen, we want to treat these properties. So you've got these people coming into your property, really treating it, and taking care of it, but also being able to turn some of these nights. We all love to travel. We get into this business because we love to travel, and I don't have to just trade just for Shawn's property, that he has in this one spot. I can go into a network and really figure out how to leverage my property into other places that I do want to go use.
One thing that you mentioned was, people that are traveling to your property are all hosts and owners. And so we actually have what's called the share pledge when you sign up. It's kind of a rules of, code of conduct within the community. We want it to be, as little work for the host to turn and like really respectful, people that are on this platform. And so we have what's called the share pledge when you sign up that you agree to. And then, the direct swap, it's really cool. I mean, it's really cool when it works, and there's other companies that do similar things to that, like Home Exchange or Third Home, you might be familiar with. Yep. And the difference though that we realized within short-term rentals is that it really doesn't make sense to do these as a short-term rental because you're always going to be giving up revenue in the future. So you're going to be blocking out this week in the future. And you might be trading it with someone that has their primary home on the platform, and primary homes just don't really fit in this structure honestly, I don't know if it works very well in Third Home or Home Exchange because now you're counting on that homeowner being gone when you go travel to it, and if their plans get changed or if their trip gets canceled, now they're at home and so it's, I think a lot of those trips get canceled a lot of times and they have to redirect where they're going or also we're kind of spoiled in that every listing that's on our platform is ran as a business, so like there's professional photos, we're not dealing with people's iPhone cameras and personal belongings and all that sort of stuff either, and so that's really unique in how we function for short-term rentals and not really, it doesn't really work in as a primary residence, which every other group, because there's Kindred, there's Third Home, there's Home Exchange, which all are primary
homes.
For the part. And so
this is interesting. Tell me a little bit about. I know one of the very first things, if you're thinking about doing this, is you have to submit your listing. Like, what are the things you guys are looking for the properties that you want in your portfolio, and so that like what would make a good fit?
Totally. So when you sign up, there's a few things that we, there's some verification things we go through, but it's really painless. In fact, if you get a chance, you should go on with one of your listings and just see how painless our development team made it, because you basically just copy and paste your Airbnb link into it. It scrapes all the data from it, so you don't have to build your own listing. It just builds it right there for you.
Yep.
And then you just do a persona, ID verification, and then we have a right to host verification. So if your ID matches your listing, we're pretty quick about being able to approve you. Otherwise, we have some sort of verification, whether that's a utility bill or something like that will make sure that you're approved. But then as for the property itself, if you're a super host, we automatically will approve that property as long as your ID and your right to host is verified as well. If you're not a super host, then we have a minimum of 5 reviews required on your property, and we haven't done a review like a star. We were thinking we would have a 4.6 star or something like that, but we decided against that for now, just because we thought more people would rather have more places to go on the platform
Right.
than not. And depending on where you're pulling the property from, if you're pulling it from Airbnb, maybe a 4.6 is kind of, bad, or it's not great. Whereas, if you're pulling it from another website, maybe 4.6 is great, so it's hard to judge that.
Yeah, and I definitely will. This is a concept that, like I said, when we started this, it's really, really interesting to me. And we love to travel. We love to, like, for me, we actually do travel last minute a lot, right? When we ever go use our own properties, it's always last minute, because we want to try to maximize our occupancy and not book things out too far in advance. And so we'll usually go, if it's within a week, is when we'll use our properties. So this fits really well into that. And it would be really fun to be able to go check out other properties, but not always set ourselves up for, that rejection of, hey, I want to use your property. Do you want to use mine? And then our feelings are hurt when they say, no, I don't want to use yours. And so, it's in that every time I've ever been a part of that, and that truly is kind of what happens. And there's plenty of times when the people do swap properties and it works out great. But there's a lot of times in our community where somebody reaches out and they hear crickets, or they get told no because they don't want the person's like, I'd love to have you stay, but we're not going to be able to make it to your property, or, it's too small, or it's too large, or there's a reason they don't want to go. And it just might not be the area they want to go. So the trade doesn't work. Right. And so this is a way to be able to really utilize your properties for that without worrying about that part of it.
Yeah. It's all instant booking too. So you're literally, you're on there, and that's part of just the whole way the system is made. You book the place for tomorrow, and it's, it shows you right there. Here's your, what you would have paid, if that's $300 a night, X'd out, and you've got your cleaning fee. You basically just put in a, payment solution, and then it's booked, and so the owner gets the notification. You get all the notification and, direct contact to the host, and it's good to go. There's none of that back and forth or awkwardness, which is
it's nice. And I'm sure, and if you do, like, my properties, my whole portfolio is managed by professional management companies. And so, I obviously would be best practices to make sure that they know what's going on, right? And make sure you're communicating with them what your plans are. Like you guys said, you've got a good, a good avenue for that, and some best practices when you're talking to the management partners. But outside of that, to me, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of downside here, unless you have a property that that you book within a week on a regular basis. Then maybe you might do it, but that's going to just being in the game and knowing how properties book and how they underwrite and what the occupancy looks like. Those properties are going to be few and far between.
The cool thing is that you're always going to be ahead no matter what, because say you have one of those properties that's, $500 a night. Well, you might only be on 15 nights a year, or, 13 nights a year. And so once those nights are used, there's no more, right? So that's as much as you'll ever provide in that year timeline. And so as long as you're using it, if you're not traveling yourself but providing, then I guess you wouldn't get the value. But those are all going to be last minute, and then they're capped, right? So it will only be a certain amount of those nights that are even ever booked, which I think is why it ends up being a win every time, because you weren't gonna fill all those nights otherwise, right?
Yeah, you weren't gonna fill them, exactly. And so this is awesome, Shawn. I'm really excited about watching you guys really grow and really kind of refine everything and figure all this out, get a larger inventory. I know that I've got a half a dozen properties that will be in the inventory here shortly. And so
with half a dozen, you're going to have 120 nights to travel, man.
Yeah. I don't know that I need that many nights to travel. I guess I probably had to strategically think of that, right? Because that's a lot of nights. You're right. But it's fun to have those properties in a portfolio so that people can, it's fun to maximize that. And who knows, we like to get around the world in travel and have some fun. And we do, I don't know how many nights a year we travel. We're on the road quite often. So maybe I'll use them. We'll see. So anything we missed, I'm trying to think of the questions I would have as an owner, of just like, okay, if I, wanting to do this, like thinking this through as as an investor, anything that, like, some of the common questions it seems like we've covered most of them that I would have as like an owner. Anything that you would want to add to that, that maybe we needed to put an exclamation point on, or that we missed?
I guess just that our website is hostshare.co. Yep. So hostshare.co. And then you just go to the start traveling button in the corner, and you go through those prompts, and then it's really quick. You just copy and paste your Airbnb link in. We'll have a manual ability here soon, but that's the easy way. You'll be signed up in 2 minutes, and then we go through your verification. Usually right now we're trying to do it within 20 minutes or 30 minutes, as long as it's within business hours. And then you get that done. You can start traveling right away tonight. That's awesome.
Yeah. So guys, we'll always post that in the show notes wherever you're watching or listening. It is hostshare.co, not .com. So hostshare.co. And go ahead, and super simple. I've been on the website. I've checked it out. It's like, it looks like the intake forms are super simple to be able to do, and a really exciting way, another way to really, that really elevates that lifestyle that we want, right? We've got the ability now, not just to use our own properties, but to go out and use other people's properties and trade some of those unused nights that are going to go unused anyways. I mean, the reality is that we live in a world and we operate in a business that on average, you're going to have 50-60% of your time that is not, like, even on good properties, that is not being used. So why not turn that into something that you can use and go visit other areas, go check out new properties, and have some fun with it, and really use these assets to not only use them as the investment side, but also to really elevate that lifestyle and those options that you have on places that you can go. So it's a really fun concept, Shawn. So I'm really excited to see how you grow it, what you do with it, how large that portfolio grows to, and those of us that are on it, it's obviously beneficial. We want to see more properties on there, and so and everybody promoting each other's, to put their properties on there and use everybody else's properties is a fun concept.
Nailed it, man. I always get fired up when I hear people get excited about using it, and man, I appreciate all the words, and we're super excited just to grow this community of hosts and people that are running these businesses, and just it's just so cool to think that a program like this could mean 10 weekends a year that a family gets to go and make memories, for
exactly
for next to nothing, it's just
or almost nothing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's it's a lot of fun. Or what a great economical way to really just ultimately boost that travel and those memories and those experiences that we get to share with those people that we love to hang around with. So Shawn, I really appreciate you joining us. This has been a really fun conversation for me personally, because it's something that I've been interested in. I've seen some of the drawbacks of just trying to swap properties directly because of, we've got a significantly large portfolio inside of the Vodacy family, and there just hasn't been a real good way to do that. And this is just like giving me a lot of ideas to be able to go, introduce that to our Vodacy family, and then obviously the world that we're talking to on the podcast right now. And so thanks so much for joining us. It's been a really, really good conversation. And so those of you that are joining us, we know how valuable your time is, and we very, very much appreciate you spending it with us. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you get as excited about this conversation as I do, and want to go check out hostshare.co when you get off and listen to this. And again, that we'll have the link in the show notes wherever you're watching or listening. If you're having a problem spelling it or finding it or whatever else, you'll have the link in there. So go check it out, and then we will go. Always at the end of every episode, I always ask you two favors. We don't run ads. We don't have sponsors on this. What we do is ask that you do two things. And one is, if you got any value out of this, if somebody else that is in the short-term rental game would like to hear this, please share the show. Those things are really helpful for us. If you have more than 30 seconds, like it, give us a thumbs up, leave us a review on whatever platform you're watching or listening on. And the final thing, and the most important thing that I always ask you at the end of every episode, is to go pick that one thing you can do today, start building that life you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. Share this with other people you think need to hear about it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Hey Grace, is there a website? Yes! For more amazing content and expert advice, visit Vodacy.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.